Once upon a time, in the heart of a busy city, there lived a young girl named Lily. At only 8 years old, Lily was full of energy and curiosity, with a smile that could brighten even the gloomiest of days. One afternoon, after school, Lily happily skipped through the park, her backpack bouncing on her back. Inside was a peanut butter and jelly sandwich that her mother had made for her, a snack she usually looked forward to eating at the end of the day. But as Lily approached her favorite spot, she noticed something unusual. Sitting alone on a weathered park bench was a man she had never seen before. His clothes were dirty and torn, his beard was unkempt, and his eyes were downcast, filled with a sadness that tugged at her heart. He looked exhausted, as if the weight of the world rested on his shoulders. As Lily drew closer, she heard his stomach growl faintly. Lily paused, her small hand reaching into her backpack. She pulled out the sandwich and stood for a moment, unsure. Her mother had always told her to be careful around strangers, but she also taught her about kindness. In that moment, Lily knew what she had to do. "Excuse me," Lily said softly, stepping toward the man. Her voice was gentle but carried with it the innocence and compassion of a child. The man looked up, startled. His eyes were pale blue but tired, filled with a deep sorrow. "Yes?" he asked, his voice rough, as if it hadn't been used in days. Lily held out her sandwich with both hands, her face serious but kind. "Would you like this? It's my favorite sandwich, but you look like you need it more than I do." The man stared at the sandwich, then at Lily, his expression one of disbelief. He hesitated, glancing around as if to make sure this wasn't some kind of trick. "Are you sure? Don't you need it?" he asked, his voice shaken slightly. Lily shook her head, her brown curls bouncing with the motion. "I'm sure. I had a big lunch at school, so I'm not hungry. Please take it." For a moment, the man's face softened. He reached out and took the sandwich with a trembling hand, his eyes filling with gratitude. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "You're very kind. What's your name, little one?" "I'm Lily," she said proudly, her eyes wide with curiosity. "What's your name?" The man hesitated before answering, as if he had almost forgotten who he was. "I'm James," he finally said, his voice quieter now. Lily smiled and sat down beside James on the bench, her legs swinging just above the ground. "Why are you sitting here all by yourself?" she asked innocently. James sighed, taking a small bite of the sandwich. It was clear that every word cost him effort. "Sometimes life doesn't go the way we expect," he said softly. "I lost everything, my job, my home, everything. But your kindness makes today a little easier." Lily listened intently, her heart aching for him. She didn't fully understand what it meant to lose everything, but she knew it was something very sad. "I'm glad I could help," she said, her voice gentle. "My mom says being kind is important, even if it's just sharing a sandwich." James smiled at her words, the first real smile he had shown in what felt like forever. "Your mom is right," he said quietly. "Kindness can change the world." As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the park, Lily knew it was time to go home. "I have to go now," she said, standing up. "Will you be okay?" James nodded, his eyes shining with gratitude. "Thanks to you, I'm better than I've been in a long time. You take care, Lily." With a wave, Lily left the park, her heart light. She couldn't wait to tell her mother about the kind man she had met and how she had shared her sandwich with him. But as she walked home, Lily had no idea that her simple act of kindness would soon lead to something much bigger. When Lily arrived home, the smell of her mother's cooking filled the small apartment. Her mother, Emma, was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of soup when Lily burst through the door. "Mom," Lily called out excitedly, her face glowing. "You won't believe what happened today." Emma smiled, wiping her hands on a towel as she turned to face her daughter. "Oh? What happened, sweetheart?" Lily launched into her story, telling her mother about James, the sandwich, and their conversation. As she spoke, Emma's expression shifted from curiosity to concern. She knelt down to Lily's level, placing her hands gently on her daughter's shoulders. "Honey, you gave your sandwich to a stranger?" Emma asked, her voice a mixture of pride and worry. Lily nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, Mom, he was so grateful. You should have seen him smile." Emma bit her lip, torn between her daughter's kindness and the dangers of the world. "That was very sweet of you, Lily, but we need to talk about being careful around people we don't know, okay? Not everyone is kind." Lily's smile faltered slightly. But James wasn't scary, Mom. He was just hungry. Emma sighed, pulling Lily into a hug. I know, sweetie. You have a big heart, and that's one of the things I love most about you. But we have to be smart about how we help people, okay? If you ever see someone who needs help again, come tell me first. We can figure out how to help together. I promise, Mom, Lily said solemnly. The next morning, Lily and Emma were having breakfast when there was a sudden, loud knock at the door. Startled, Emma went to answer it, only to find 2 police officers standing in the hallway. Their faces were serious, their expressions unreadable. Good morning, ma'am, one of the officers said, his voice deep and authoritative. We're looking for a little girl named Lily. Emma's heart sank as she looked back at her daughter who was watching from the kitchen with wide eyes. I'm her mother, Emma said, her voice tight. Is something wrong? We'd like to speak with both of you, the officer said. It's about an incident that occurred yesterday. Emma's protective instincts kicked in. Of course, she said, though her voice wavered slightly. Please, come in. Lily, now nervous, approached cautiously as Emma called her over. The police officers introduced themselves and explained that they were investigating the man Lily had met in the park. They asked her to describe him in detail, and Lily eagerly recounted everything she could remember, from James's dirty clothes to his kind smile. But as the officers listened, they exchanged uneasy glances. Something wasn't right. Why are you asking about James? Emma finally asked, her voice filled with worry. Did something happen to him? The officers shared a brief look before one of them spoke. Ma'am, the man your daughter met, James, was found unconscious in the park later that evening. He's in the hospital now. Emma gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Is he going to be okay? She asked, her voice trembling. The officers reassured them that James was receiving the best care, but their questions became more pressing. They wanted to know everything about Lily's interaction with James. Why had she approached him? What had they talked about? Did he seem sick or injured? Lily, confused and scared, answered their questions as best she could. He didn't seem sick, she said, her voice small. He just looked tired and hungry. The officers thanked them for their time and left, but Emma couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that had settled over their home. What had happened to James after Lily left the park? Why were the police so interested in him? As the days passed, the tension in their small apartment grew. Lily couldn't stop thinking about James. Was he okay? Had her sandwich really made a difference? Emma, too, found herself constantly checking her phone, half expecting another visit from the police. Then, one day, the knock came again. Emma opened the door to find the same 2 police officers standing there, but this time their expressions were different. Less stern, more relieved. Good afternoon, Mrs. Collins, the officer said. We have some news about James that we think you and Lily should hear. Emma's heart raced as she let them inside. They all sat down in the living room, and the officers began to explain. The man Lily had met in the park wasn't just any homeless person. His real name was Jonathan, and he had been missing for over a year. His family had been searching for him tirelessly, never giving up hope that they would find him. But Jonathan had lost his memory due to a traumatic event, and he had been living on the streets, completely unaware of who he really was. Until Lily came along. Your daughter's act of kindness triggered something in his mind, one of the officers explained. It helped him start to remember. He's been reunited with his family, and they'd like to meet both of you to thank Lily in person. Lily's eyes widened in shock. My sandwich helped him remember who he is? She asked, her voice filled with awe. The officers nodded. Yes, Lily, your kindness helped bring Jonathan back to his family. Emma's heart swelled with pride, and tears filled her eyes as she looked at her daughter. You've done something amazing, Lily, she whispered. You've changed someone's life. The next day, Emma and Lily found themselves standing in the park where it had all begun, waiting nervously to meet Jonathan's family. When they arrived, Jonathan looked so different from the man Lily had met just days before. He was clean, well-dressed, and standing tall, his face filled with gratitude. Lily, Jonathan said, his voice full of emotion as he knelt down to her level. You saved me. You helped me remember who I am. I'll never forget what you did for me. Lily blushed, shy but proud. I just gave you a sandwich, she said quietly. Jonathan smiled. It was so much more than that. His parents, Edward and Catherine, stepped forward, tears in their eyes as they thanked Lily and Emma over and over again. "You've given us our son back," Catherine said, her voice trembling. "We can never repay you for what you've done." As they all sat together in the park, sharing stories and laughter, Emma realized that Lily's small act of kindness had started something much bigger than they ever could have imagined. It wasn't just about a sandwich or a moment of compassion. It was about the ripple effect that kindness can have on the world. And from that day forward, Lily knew that even the smallest act of kindness could change someone's life in ways she never thought possible. As the sun began to set, Jonathan turned to Lily one last time. "Never stop being kind, Lily," he said softly. "Your heart can change the world." Lily smiled, her heart full. She knew now that kindness wasn't just something her mom had told her about. It was something real, something powerful, and she promised herself she would never stop sharing it. Just like her mother always said, sharing is caring. Lily and her mother Emma walked home from the park that evening, their hearts still full from the emotional encounter with Jonathan and his family. The city buzzed around them, but for Lily, the world felt quieter, more peaceful. She was still processing everything, how her small act of giving away a sandwich had led to such a dramatic change in someone's life. As they reached their apartment, Emma knelt down to Lily's level, looking at her with pride in her eyes. "Lily, I hope you know how proud I am of you," Emma said softly. "What you did for Jonathan, you didn't just change his life, you brought hope to his family. You've shown the world that even a child can make a huge difference." Lily smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "But Mom," she said thoughtfully, "I didn't really do much. I just saw he was hungry and shared my sandwich. That's all." Emma smiled and hugged her tightly. "Sometimes, Lily, it's the simplest things that have the biggest impact. You didn't have to do something grand or complicated to change Jonathan's life. You did something from the heart, and that's what made it so powerful." As the weeks went by, life in their little apartment returned to normal. Lily went back to school, and Emma continued her job, but something had shifted. There was a new energy in the air, a sense of purpose that hadn't been there before. Then, one day, something unexpected happened. Emma received a letter in the mail from Jonathan's parents. It was beautifully written and heartfelt, thanking her and Lily once again for their kindness. But there was more to the letter. In the letter, Jonathan's family explained that they had been inspired by Lily's compassion and wanted to do something special to honor her act of kindness. They wanted to start a foundation in Lily's name, a foundation that would focus on helping people who were struggling, just like Jonathan had been. The Lily Foundation for Kindness would provide food, shelter, and emotional support to homeless individuals and those suffering from memory loss. The letter ended with a personal invitation for Emma and Lily to visit Jonathan's family in New York, where they could meet with community leaders to discuss the foundation's first project. Emma read the letter aloud to Lily, who sat wide-eyed and stunned. "They want to name a foundation after me?" Lily asked, her voice filled with disbelief. "Yes," Emma said, tears of pride welling in her eyes, "because your kindness showed them that even the smallest actions can create a ripple effect. And now, they want to spread that kindness to even more people." Lily's heart raced. She was just an 8-year-old girl, but now, people were looking to her for inspiration. The idea of a foundation in her name was overwhelming, but at the same time, it made her feel something she had never felt before, a sense of responsibility. "What do you think, sweetie?" Emma asked gently. "Would you like to be a part of this?" Lily thought for a moment, then nodded with determination. "Yes, Mom. I want to help people, just like I helped Jonathan." And so, their lives took another unexpected turn. A few weeks later, Emma and Lily found themselves on a plane to New York. It was Lily's first time flying, and though she was nervous, she was also excited. She pressed her face against the window, watching the clouds drift by as the plane soared high above the world. When they arrived in New York, Jonathan's family was there to greet them. Jonathan looked healthier and happier than ever, and his parents, Edward and Catherine, welcomed Emma and Lily with open arms. The warmth and gratitude in their eyes were palpable. Over the next few days, Emma and Lily were taken on tours of the city, met with various officials and community organizers, and sat in on meetings where the plans for the foundation were being discussed. Lily, though young, was included in every conversation. Her ideas were taken seriously, and her opinion mattered. During one of these meetings, Jonathan spoke up. "Lily, what you did for me was simple, but it saved my life," he said, looking at her with deep admiration. "We want this foundation to carry forward that same spirit. We want it to be about small, meaningful acts of kindness that can change the course of someone's life." Lily's eyes lit up. "What if we start by making sure no one in the city goes hungry?" she suggested. "We could have stations set up where people can get food, just like how I gave you my sandwich." Everyone in the room nodded, impressed by Lily's insight. "That's a brilliant idea," Edward said. "We could set up food stations in parks and busy areas where people who need help can come and get something to eat, no questions asked." The more they talked, the more the plan came together. The foundation would not only provide food, but also resources for people who were struggling with mental health issues or had lost their way in life. The goal was to offer compassion, support, and most importantly, hope. As the foundation began to take shape, Lily found herself growing more and more confident. She wasn't just a little girl anymore. She was a leader, someone who was making a real difference. And while it was overwhelming at times, she knew deep down that this was exactly what she was meant to do. On the last day of their trip, Jonathan took Lily and Emma to Central Park, where they sat on a bench overlooking the vast green space. "This is where I spent most of my time when I was lost," Jonathan said quietly. "I would sit here, watching the world go by, feeling invisible. But when you gave me that sandwich, Lily, you reminded me that I wasn't invisible. You saw me, and that changed everything." Lily looked up at him, her eyes wide with understanding. "I just wanted to help," she said softly. "And you did," Jonathan replied. "More than you'll ever know." As they sat there, watching the people walk by, Lily realized something important. Kindness wasn't just about giving food or helping someone in need. It was about seeing people for who they were, recognizing their struggles, and offering a hand when they needed it most. It was about connection, empathy, and love. When they returned home, the work on the foundation continued. News of the Lily Foundation for Kindness spread quickly, and soon, donations and volunteers were pouring in. Lily's story was shared across the country, inspiring people from all walks of life to find their own ways to spread kindness. But despite all the attention and excitement, Lily remained the same sweet, humble girl she had always been. She never forgot the lesson her mother had taught her, that it didn't take much to make a difference. All it took was an open heart and the willingness to care. And so, the foundation grew, spreading kindness and compassion to cities across the country. Lily continued to be at the heart of it all, leading by example, showing the world that even the smallest acts of kindness could spark a revolution of love and hope. Years later, when Lily was much older, she would look back on that day in the park and smile, knowing that it was the start of something far greater than she could have ever imagined. That one simple sandwich had changed the course of not just one life, but countless others. Because in the end, Lily learned, kindness wasn't just something you did, it was something you lived. And through the Lily Foundation for Kindness, that message would continue to spread for generations to come. As the years passed, the Lily Foundation for Kindness grew into a force that reached far beyond what anyone had originally imagined. The food stations that had started in parks were now in cities across the country, offering not only meals but also blankets, toiletries, and most importantly, a kind word or smile for those who needed it. Lily, now a teenager, had become an ambassador for kindness, speaking at schools and community centers, encouraging people to take small actions that could change the world. She wasn't just the face of the foundation, she was its heart, always reminding people that they didn't need to do something grand to make a difference. Her words resonated because they came from a place of genuine compassion, and it inspired countless others to follow in her footsteps. One day, while visiting a new kindness center that had just opened in a small town, Lily met a young boy named Danny. He was sitting alone, clutching a worn-out backpack, his clothes a little too big for his small frame. Something about him reminded Lily of the day she met Jonathan. There was a quiet sadness in his eyes, a loneliness that tugged at her heart. Lily sat down beside him on a bench outside the Kindness Center. "Hi," she said softly, offering a gentle smile. "I'm Lily. What's your name?" The boy looked up at her, hesitant at first. "Danny," he replied quietly, his voice barely audible. Lily nodded, sensing the fear and uncertainty in him. "It's nice to meet you, Danny. Are you okay?" Danny shrugged, not meeting her gaze. "I don't know," he muttered, his hands gripping the straps of his backpack tightly. "I don't really have anywhere to go." Lily's heart broke a little. She had met so many people like Danny through the foundation, people who had lost their way or were struggling with something they couldn't quite explain. She knew that sometimes all they needed was for someone to listen, to show them they weren't invisible. "Do you want to talk about it?" Lily asked gently. Danny hesitated for a moment before nodding. "My mom? She's gone. And my dad, he doesn't really want me around anymore. I've been staying with a friend, but I don't think I can stay there much longer." Lily felt a wave of sadness wash over her. "I'm really sorry, Danny. That's a lot to deal with." He looked at her then, his eyes full of pain. "I just don't know." Danny's voice wavered as he spoke, his small hands trembling slightly. Lily took a deep breath, her heart aching for him. She had heard stories like his before, but each one felt like a fresh wound, a reminder of how fragile life could be for some people. She reached out and gently placed her hand on his, offering a comforting squeeze. "You don't have to figure it all out right now," Lily said softly, her voice steady. "But you don't have to go through this alone either. We can help you here at the Kindness Center. You'll be safe, and we can figure out what comes next together." Danny's eyes flickered with a mix of hope and disbelief. "Really? You'd help me?" "Of course," Lily replied, her smile warm and sincere. "That's why we're here. We want to help people, just like someone helped me once." Danny looked at her, curious now. "Someone helped you? But you're famous. Everyone knows about you and the foundation." Lily chuckled softly, though there was a sadness in her laughter. "I wasn't always known for this, Danny. When I was your age, I met a man named Jonathan. He was homeless, and I gave him my sandwich. It was a small thing, but it changed both of our lives forever. That one small act of kindness is what started all of this." Danny's eyes widened. "Just a sandwich? That's it?" "Just a sandwich," Lily confirmed. "Sometimes, the smallest things can make the biggest difference. And it's not just about what you give, it's about the kindness behind it." Jonathan didn't need a sandwich as much as he needed to feel like someone saw him, like someone cared. That's why this foundation exists, to remind people that they're not alone. For the first time since they started talking, Danny's lips curled into a small, cautious smile. "I never thought of it that way." Lily smiled back, feeling a swell of pride in her chest. "Well, you're here now, and that's what matters. We'll make sure you have a place to stay, food to eat, and people who care about you. We'll help you get back on your feet, one step at a time." Danny's shoulders relaxed a little, the tension easing from his small frame. "Thank you, Lily," he whispered, his voice barely above a breath. "I didn't think anyone would care." Lily stood up, extending her hand to him. "You'll always have people who care, Danny. Let's go inside, okay?" Danny took her hand, and together they walked into the Kindness Center, where a group of volunteers greeted them with warm smiles and open arms. Lily stayed by Danny's side as they helped him get settled, making sure he had everything he needed: a meal, a bed, and a sense of safety that had been missing from his life for far too long. As the day went on, Lily found herself thinking more and more about how far the foundation had come. What had started as a simple sandwich had blossomed into something that was changing lives across the country. And yet, at its core, the foundation was still about the same thing it had always been: kindness in its purest form. Later that evening, after everyone at the center had gone home, Lily sat in the quiet office, reflecting on the day's events. Her phone buzzed, and she glanced down to see a message from Jonathan. "Heard you met a kid today who reminds you of me?" Lily smiled and typed a quick response. "Yeah. His name is Danny. He's going through a tough time, but we're helping him." There was a brief pause before Jonathan replied. "That's what it's all about, Lily. I'm so proud of what you've done. You've turned one small act of kindness into something that's touching lives every day." Lily stared at the screen for a moment, feeling the weight of those words. It was true. What had begun as a chance encounter in a park had grown into a movement, something that was bigger than her, bigger than Jonathan. It was a force of change, driven by the belief that kindness could heal even the deepest wounds. As she leaned back in her chair, her thoughts drifted back to that first day in the park when she had offered Jonathan her sandwich. She could never have imagined then how much that simple gesture would ripple outward, touching so many lives along the way. The next morning, Lily woke up feeling a renewed sense of purpose. She had meetings lined up with city officials and other organizations, but all she could think about was how she could expand the kindness centers even further, reaching more people like Danny, people who needed to be seen, heard, and cared for. At the meeting, she sat across from the mayor and a group of city council members, laying out her vision for the future of the foundation. "We've made a lot of progress," she began, her voice confident and clear. "But there are still so many people out there who need help. We need more kindness centers, more volunteers, and more partnerships to make sure no one slips through the cracks." The mayor nodded thoughtfully. "Your foundation has made a tremendous impact, Lily. We've seen how the kindness centers have transformed communities, but expansion requires resources. How do you plan to gather the support needed to take this nationwide?" Lily took a deep breath, knowing the answer was something she had been working on for months. "We're going to start a nationwide campaign. We'll share stories, real stories, of the people we've helped and the difference kindness has made in their lives. We'll ask people to contribute, not just money, but their time and effort. This isn't just about donations, it's about creating a movement." One of the council members leaned forward. "And how do you plan to make this movement sustainable?" "That's the beauty of it," Lily replied, her eyes lighting up with passion. "Kindness doesn't run out. The more you give, the more it spreads. We'll create volunteer programs in schools, encourage businesses to participate, and work with local governments to ensure that kindness centers are supported by their communities. It's not just about helping people today, it's about building a culture of kindness that lasts." By the time the meeting ended, Lily felt a surge of excitement. The city officials were on board, and plans for expansion were already in motion. But Lily knew that the real work was still ahead of her. Back at the Kindness Center, Lily found Danny helping a group of volunteers organize donations. He was smiling, his face brighter than it had been when they first met. Seeing him there, already becoming a part of the community, filled Lily with a sense of pride and joy. As she watched him, she couldn't help but think about how far they had come. The foundation was growing, the kindness was spreading, and lives were being changed every day. But for Lily, it was still about the simple moments, the connections, the conversations, the small acts of love that made all the difference. And so she kept going, driven by the same belief she had held since she was a little girl. Kindness could change the world. It already had, and it would continue to do so, one person at a time. He looked at her then, his eyes full of pain. "I just don't know what to do," Danny said, his voice cracking as he struggled to hold back his emotions. His small hands trembled slightly, gripping the straps of his backpack as if it were the only thing keeping him grounded. Lily could see the weight of his struggle in every movement, and her heart broke for him. She took a deep breath, trying to find the right words to comfort him. She had seen so much pain in the people who came through the kindness centers, but it never got easier. "You don't have to figure it all out right now," she said gently, leaning forward so that Danny knew she was really listening. "But you don't have to go through this alone either. We're here for you, and we'll help you figure it out one step at a time." Danny's eyes flickered with a glimmer of hope, though it was fragile, like a candle about to go out. "But what if I mess everything up?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. "What if I'm not worth helping?" Lily's heart ached at his words. She knew that feeling of being lost, of doubting whether you deserved the kindness of others. But she also knew how powerful it could be when someone reached out and showed you that you were worth it, just as she had done for Jonathan all those years ago. Everyone deserves kindness, Danny, she said firmly, her voice filled with quiet strength. And I promise you, you're worth every bit of help we can give. It doesn't matter where you've been or what's happened to you. What matters is that you're here now, and you're asking for help. That's brave, and it's enough. Danny looked up at her, his eyes wide with uncertainty, but there was a spark of something else too, something like belief. He didn't say anything for a moment, and Lily let the silence hang between them, giving him space to process everything. Finally, he nodded. Okay, he said quietly. I'll try. Lily smiled, relief flooding through her. That's all anyone can ask for, she said. Now, let's go inside and get you settled. We'll figure the rest out together. Danny stood up, still clutching his backpack tightly, but there was a new sense of determination in his posture. Lily guided him into the kindness center, where the volunteers were already preparing for the day ahead. As they walked through the doors, the warm, welcoming atmosphere seemed to envelop Danny, and for the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to hope that things might get better. As Lily helped him get a meal and showed him around, she couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. Not just in Danny for being brave enough to seek help, but in the kindness center itself. It had become a place where people could come to rebuild their lives, to find hope again. And it all stemmed from that one simple act of kindness she had shown Jonathan so many years ago. She glanced over at Danny, who was now sitting with a group of volunteers, shyly smiling as they included him in their conversation. His small, trembling hands had stilled, and he looked a little less lost than he had when they first met. Lily knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy for Danny, but she also knew that he wouldn't have to walk it alone. He had found a place where kindness was more than just a word, it was a way of life. And for Lily, that was everything. As the days passed, Danny slowly began to open up more, not only to Lily but also to the volunteers and other kids at the kindness center. He wasn't the same quiet, uncertain boy who had sat alone on the bench that first day. Little by little, he started to feel like he belonged, as if he had found a place where he could be himself without fear of being judged or abandoned. Lily often watched him from a distance, marveling at how much he had changed in such a short time. He had gone from a boy, filled with doubt and pain, to someone who was starting to believe in himself again. And though the journey was far from over, Lily knew that he was on the right path. One afternoon, as Lily was walking through the center, she saw Danny sitting at one of the long tables, helping some younger kids organize their belongings. He was smiling, laughing even, and the sight made her heart swell with pride. It was moments like this that reminded her why she had started the kindness centers in the first place, why kindness mattered. She walked over and sat down beside him, watching as he helped a little girl tie her shoes. "You're pretty good at this," Lily said, her voice warm and teasing. Danny glanced up, his face flushing slightly with pride. "It's not hard," he said, shrugging. "I used to help my little brother with stuff like this, before everything changed." Lily nodded, not pushing him to say more. She knew that talking about his family was still difficult for him, but the fact that he even mentioned his brother was a sign that he was healing, slowly but surely. "You're doing a great job, Danny," she said, her tone sincere. "You're helping people here, just like we're helping you." He looked at her, his expression thoughtful. "Do you really think I can help people? Like actually make a difference?" Lily smiled gently. "I know you can. Helping isn't just about big, grand gestures. It's about being there for people when they need someone. Sometimes the smallest things make the biggest difference." Danny nodded slowly, his eyes flickering with understanding. "Like how you helped Jonathan and how you helped me." "Exactly," Lily said. "Kindness doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be real." For a moment, they sat in silence, watching as the other kids at the center played and worked together. It was a peaceful scene, filled with the kind of hope and warmth that Lily had always dreamed of creating through the foundation. "Do you think I could do what you do someday?" Danny asked suddenly, his voice filled with curiosity. Lily turned to him, surprised but pleased by the question. "What do you mean?" "Like, help people, run a kindness center, make a difference like you do," Danny said, his eyes wide with wonder. Lily smiled, touched by his words. I think you can do whatever you set your heart on, Danny. If helping people is what you want to do, then you can absolutely do it. And you don't have to wait until you're older. You're already making a difference right here, right now. Danny's face lit up, a spark of excitement flickering in his eyes. I think I'd like that, helping people like you do. Lily's heart swelled with pride. Then we'll make it happen. You can start right here, and one day you'll have your own kindness center. I have no doubt about that. As they sat there together, a sense of peace washed over Lily. She had seen so much in her journey with the foundation, so many lives changed by acts of kindness, so many moments of healing and hope. But seeing Danny, this boy who had once been so lost, now looking toward the future with excitement and purpose, filled her with a deep sense of fulfillment. Over the next few weeks, Danny became even more involved in the daily activities at the center. He helped with organizing donations, worked with other kids who were going through difficult times, and even started leading small projects on his own. The staff and volunteers all noticed how much he had blossomed, and many of them commented on how Danny had become a pillar of support for the other kids. One day, as Lily was preparing for a community event at the center, one of the volunteers approached her with a smile. "You know, Danny's really something special," she said. "He's got such a big heart. He reminds me of you when you first started." Lily laughed softly. "He's been through a lot, but I can see how much he's growing. I think he's going to do great things." And as the event unfolded, with laughter and conversation filling the air, Lily couldn't help but think back to her own journey. She remembered being that little girl who simply wanted to share her sandwich with a man in need, not knowing that it would change her life and the lives of so many others forever. Later that evening, as the center began to quiet down, Danny found Lily cleaning up in one of the rooms. He walked over, looking more confident than she had ever seen him. "Lily," he said, his voice steady, "I wanted to thank you for everything. You didn't just give me a place to stay, you gave me a chance to believe in myself again. I don't know what I would have done without you." Lily turned to him, her eyes filled with warmth. "You don't need to thank me, Danny. You did the hard part. You made the decision to ask for help, to stay, and to grow. I'm just glad I could be here to help you along the way." Danny smiled, his eyes bright with hope. "I'm going to keep helping people. I want to be like you someday." Lily's heart swelled with pride once again. "You already are, Danny. You already are." As they stood there, surrounded by the quiet warmth of the Kindness Center, Lily knew that her work wasn't done. There were still so many people who needed help, so many lives that could be changed through small acts of kindness. But in that moment, she also knew that she wasn't alone in this journey. Danny, and countless others like him, were ready to carry the torch forward, spreading kindness wherever they went. And that, Lily realized, was the greatest gift of all. Kindness wasn't just about what one person could do. It was about how that kindness could inspire others to do the same, creating a ripple effect that could change the world. Together, they would continue to make a difference, one act of kindness at a time. As the months went by, Danny's transformation became even more remarkable. His confidence grew with each passing day, and he became a vital part of the Kindness Center. He wasn't just receiving help anymore. He was actively giving back. Whether it was helping the younger kids with their homework, organizing donations, or sitting with someone who needed a friend, Danny had become a beacon of hope for so many. One morning, as Lily walked into the center, she noticed something that filled her heart with joy. Danny was standing at the front of a group of new volunteers, showing them around, explaining the mission of the center, and helping them get settled. His voice was strong and steady, his eyes filled with the same passion that had once driven Lily when she first started the foundation. Lily stood back for a moment, watching him in awe. She hadn't realized how much he had grown, not just in confidence, but in leadership. Danny wasn't the scared little boy who had clutched his backpack tightly, unsure if anyone would care about him. He had become a leader, someone people looked up to, someone who had found his place in the world. After the orientation, Danny spotted Lily watching him from across the room. He smiled and walked over, looking a little sheepish. "You're spying on me, huh?" he teased, though there was a hint of pride in his voice. Lily grinned. "I wouldn't call it spying. Just admiring. You've come so far, Danny. He shrugged, though the smile on his face betrayed how much her words meant to him. I've had a lot of help, from you, from everyone here. Lily placed a hand on his shoulder. You've done the work, Danny. We've just been here to support you. And now look at you, leading a whole group of volunteers. I'm so proud of you. Danny's eyes softened, and for a moment he seemed overwhelmed by the weight of her praise. I still can't believe how much things have changed. Sometimes I think about where I was when I first came here, how lost I felt. I never imagined I'd feel like this. And how do you feel now? Lily asked gently. Danny thought for a moment, his expression thoughtful. I feel like I belong, like I have a purpose. Lily smiled, her heart full. That's exactly what you deserve. And now you're giving that sense of purpose to others. You're helping people in the same way you were helped. Danny nodded, a sense of determination flickering in his eyes. I want to keep doing more. I've been thinking, maybe one day I could run my own kindness center, like you do. I know it's a big dream, but… Lily's eyes lit up. It's not too big, Danny. It's absolutely possible. And I have no doubt that you'll make it happen. In fact, I can help you get started, whenever you're ready. Danny looked at her in surprise. You really think I could do it? I know you can, Lily said firmly. You've already shown that you have the heart, the drive, and the compassion to lead. The next step is just putting a plan into action, and I'll be right here to support you every step of the way. The idea of Danny starting his own kindness center wasn't just a passing thought. It began to take shape in the weeks that followed. Lily and Danny spent hours talking through the logistics, drawing up plans, and setting goals. It was a lot of work, but Danny was committed. He knew that helping people was what he was meant to do, and with Lily's guidance, he was ready to take that next step. One day, as they sat together in the office, going over some ideas for the new center, Danny paused and looked at Lily with a serious expression. Lily, do you ever feel scared? Like scared that you won't be able to help everyone who needs it? Lily leaned back in her chair, thinking about his question. Honestly, all the time. There are so many people who need help, and it can feel overwhelming. But I've learned that we can't do everything for everyone. We just have to do what we can where we are with what we have. And that's enough. Sometimes, helping one person can change the world in ways we don't even realize. Danny nodded slowly, taking her words to heart. I guess I'm just worried that I'll mess up or that I won't be able to make as much of a difference as you have. Lily smiled warmly. Danny, you've already made a difference. Look around you. These people, these kids, they look up to you. You've helped so many people already, and you're just getting started. The important thing is to keep going, even when it's hard, even when you feel like you're not doing enough. Because trust me, you are. Danny let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Thanks, Lily. I needed to hear that. Anytime, Lily replied. And remember, you're not alone. You have a whole team of people who believe in you and who are ready to help you succeed. The months passed in a blur of activity. Plans for Danny's Kindness Center were well underway, and the community had rallied around him, offering support, donations, and resources to make his dream a reality. The day of the center's grand opening approached quickly, and the excitement was palpable. On the morning of the opening, Danny stood outside the new center, looking up at the sign that read, Danny's Haven. The name had been his idea, a place where people could come and feel safe, loved, and cared for. It was a name that reflected everything he had learned about kindness and compassion. Lily stood beside him, her heart swelling with pride. You did it, Danny, she said softly. You made this happen. Danny turned to her, his eyes shining with emotion. I couldn't have done it without you. Lily shook her head. This is all you. You've worked so hard for this, and now it's here. Your own kindness center, where you'll change lives every single day. As people began to arrive for the opening ceremony, Danny felt a wave of nervousness wash over him. But when he saw the smiling faces of the volunteers, the children, and the families who had come to celebrate this moment with him, the nerves melted away. He knew that this was where he was meant to be. During the ceremony, Danny gave a short speech, thanking everyone for their support and sharing his vision for the center. As he spoke, Lily watched from the sidelines, feeling an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. This was what it was all about, passing the torch, inspiring others to carry on the work of kindness and compassion. After the ceremony, Danny found Lily in the crowd. He hugged her tightly, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, Lily, for believing in me, for helping me become the person I am today." Lily smiled, her eyes misty. "You did it, Danny. You believed in yourself, and that's what made all the difference." As they stood there, surrounded by the joy and excitement of the day, Lily couldn't help but think about how far they had both come. From that fateful day in the park when she shared a sandwich with a man named Jonathan, to this moment, watching a young boy she had helped grow into a leader, creating his own ripple of kindness in the world. And in that moment, Lily knew that the ripple would continue, spreading outwards, touching lives she would never even know about. Because kindness wasn't just a moment. It was a movement, and it was one that would keep growing, one small act at a time. As the sun set on that day, casting a warm glow over Danny's haven, Lily realized that this was just the beginning. There would be more centers, more people helped, more lives changed, and through it all, the message would remain the same. Kindness could change the world, and it already had. As the evening descended, casting long shadows over the newly opened Danny's haven, the warm, golden light of the setting sun seemed to reflect the sense of hope and renewal that filled the air. The grand opening had been a resounding success, and the people of the community had poured in to support Danny, eager to see the place he had built with such determination and compassion. Lily stood quietly at the back of the crowd, watching as Danny interacted with guests, shaking hands, offering hugs, and making promises to do everything he could for the people who would come through those doors. She couldn't help but feel a deep sense of pride swell in her chest. Danny had transformed before her eyes, and now, here he was, the leader of his own kindness center. The quiet, lost boy who had once questioned his own worth was now someone others looked up to. But as the crowd began to thin and the center slowly emptied, Lily knew there was still work to be done. This was just the beginning, and though she was deeply proud of how far Danny had come, she also knew that the road ahead would be filled with challenges. Running a kindness center was no small task, and while it came with moments of deep fulfillment, it also carried the weight of responsibility and the heartache of knowing you couldn't help everyone. Later that evening, after the last guest had left and the center had quieted down, Lily and Danny sat together in the front room. The energy of the day still buzzed in the air, but the exhaustion was starting to settle in as well. They both sat in silence for a while, reflecting on everything that had happened. Danny broke the silence first, his voice soft but filled with emotion. "I can't believe it's real. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and this will all have been a dream." Lily smiled warmly. "It's real, Danny. You made it happen." He looked down at his hands, which were still trembling slightly from the adrenaline of the day. "I never thought I'd be here. You know, when I first came to the Kindness Center, I didn't even know if I'd be okay the next day. And now I'm sitting here, and this place, it's mine." Lily nodded, understanding the weight of what he was saying. "It's a big responsibility, and it's normal to feel overwhelmed, but you're not alone. You have an entire community behind you, and you can always count on me." Danny looked up at her, his eyes filled with gratitude. "I know, and that's what makes this feel possible. I want to make sure I do everything right. What if I mess up? What if I can't help people the way you've helped me?" Lily leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. "Danny, you're going to make mistakes. We all do. There will be days when things don't go the way you planned, when you feel like you're not doing enough. But that's okay. What matters is that you're here and that you're trying. People will come to this center not just for food or shelter, but for kindness, for compassion. And that's something you've already mastered." Danny smiled, though there was still a hint of uncertainty in his eyes. "I just don't want to let anyone down." "You won't," Lily said, "because you care. And that's what makes all the difference. You're already doing so much by simply being here, by being someone who others can turn to when they need help. That's what this is all about." The two sat in silence again, but this time, the quiet was filled with a sense of peace. Danny wasn't the same scared boy he had once been. He had grown, not just into a leader, but into someone who understood the true meaning of kindness and the impact it could have on others. As the moon rose outside, casting a silver glow over the empty streets, Danny finally stood up, stretching his arms and looking around at the center. "I guess we should get some rest. Tomorrow's another day, and there's a lot to do." Lily nodded, rising to her feet. "You're right, but don't forget to take care of yourself too. You're no good to anyone if you're burned out." Danny chuckled softly. "I'll try to remember that." They walked to the door together, locking up the center for the night. As they stepped outside, the cool night air hit them, refreshing after the warmth and excitement of the day. Danny turned to Lily, his face thoughtful. "Lily, I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about how one small act of kindness can ripple out and change the world. I never really understood that before, but now I think I do. I want to be that ripple. I want to make a difference, even if it's just one person at a time." Lily smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "You already are, Danny. You've been that ripple from the moment you decided to stay and fight for a better future. And the impact you're going to have, it's going to be bigger than you could ever imagine." Danny looked up at the stars, his eyes filled with wonder. "I guess we'll just have to see." As they parted ways for the night, Lily couldn't help but reflect on the journey they had both been on. From the first sandwich she had given to Jonathan, to the countless lives that had been touched by the kindness centers, to Danny's own transformation, it was all proof that kindness, no matter how small, could truly change the world. The next day, Lily returned to her own kindness center, filled with a renewed sense of purpose. She knew that her work wasn't done. There were still so many people out there who needed help, who needed someone to see them, to care for them. And as long as she was able, she would continue to be that person. A few weeks later, Lily received a letter in the mail from Jonathan, the man whose life had sparked this entire journey. He wrote about how his life had changed since their meeting, how he had reconnected with his family, and how he had started a small project of his own, helping others who had been in his situation. He thanked her once again for the sandwich, for the kindness that had saved him. Lily smiled as she read the letter, tears of joy welling in her eyes. She knew now, more than ever, that the ripple of kindness never truly ended. It spread from one person to another, growing and multiplying, creating waves of change that reached farther than anyone could see. And as long as people like Danny, Jonathan, and Lily existed, those ripples would continue to move through the world, touching lives, healing hearts, and reminding everyone that kindness was the most powerful force they had. In the quiet of her office, Lily whispered a silent promise to herself and to all the people she had helped along the way. She would never stop. She would keep spreading kindness, one small act at a time.